All right, so now we're going to look at what does it mean to evaluate a polynomial. And we've seen this before. We've evaluated functions before, but we really want to make sure we understand what is that, when we see those directions, what is that asking us to do? And then also, what does this actually represent on a graph? So when we evaluate a polynomial, what are we actually finding besides just an answer, right? Does it have a meaning? Bigger than the meaning of life? Who knows? Well, I know. All right, so evaluate the function for the given value of x. All right, so I've already, for the first one, I highlighted these x's, and then here, this is the given value. The reason why I did that is I really want us to make sure we understand that when we're evaluating something, it's literally just saying plug this in for this thing, and in this case, this thing is x. So I'm going to substitute a -2 everywhere I see an x. So this becomes f of -2 equals 7 times -2 minus 6. Now this is something I can do a little mental math, or I could type this into my calculator, and I know this is -14 minus 6, so this is -20. So I know f of -2 equals -20. Great. Okay, so let's try the next one. Hopefully pretty straightforward. I've got x's, and I've got 6, right? There's an x, there's an x, there's an x. I know x equals 6. So then we can take the 6, plug it in here just so we know what we're doing, and then this is the actual calculation part, right? And so this becomes g of 6 equals 6 to the third plus 3 times 6 squared minus 15. Now be careful with your order of operations. If you're typing this into your calculator, I would highly recommend typing it in exactly as I've written it here with the parentheses, and just type that all in. And if you do that correctly, your calculator will give you the right number. If so like where we could make a mistake is maybe we do 3 times 6 and then square that. That would be incorrect, right? Because we're only squaring the x, so I'm only squaring the 6. So if I look at my calculator, then I would do 6 to the third plus 3 times 6 squared, and then minus 15. Hit enter, and I get 309. So therefore I know g of 6 equals 309. Next one, let's do one more together, and then I'm going to have you try the last 3 on your own. But here I want to point out a different way to approach this with the calculator. So again, just to kind of stick with the same fun highlighting, because I like to use the highlighter. I'm going to plug in a -2 everywhere that I see an x. So here I have to be careful with using my calculator even, because I need to, let me back up. This is where the parentheses are really important. So I'm going to do f of -2 equals -3 times -2 to the fourth plus 9 times -2 squared minus -2 plus 6. All right, so again, here's where the order of operations and all of that is crucial, because I've got some negatives and some exponents. So what I would actually recommend doing is if we go to our calculator, I would go to y equals, and I would actually put this function in with the x's. So if I look at the function is -3x to the fourth plus 9x squared minus x plus 6. So I'm going to do -3x to the fourth plus 9x squared. Oops, I forgot. Minus x plus 6. Minus x plus 6. Right? So the nice thing about this is I can look at this, 3x to the fourth plus 9x squared minus x plus 6. Make sure I did that correctly. And now, sorry, and I did do a negative, correct? Yeah, so I got my negative. So now what I would actually do is I would go to the table. So hit second graph. And then if I go to the table, now I can just look and see when x is negative 2, what is the y value? And it's negative 4. So that is my answer. And the reason why I would recommend doing that is the calculator is going to take care of doing the order of operations, the parentheses, the exponents, and everything correctly for you, as opposed to there's a lot of room for error if you try to type this into the calculator. Now, don't get me wrong, there was room for error with me typing this into the calculator as well, but notice how, again, before I did anything after I typed it in, was I just double checked, does that match what I typed in? Okay, so now I want you to try to do 4, 5, and 6. So go ahead and pause the video, evaluate each of those at the given value of x, unpause when you're ready to discuss. Okay, so hopefully for number 4, you got g of negative 4 is 5. For number 5, you got f of 16 is negative 3,001,552.8. And for number 6, each of 4 is 55.84. If you didn't get one of those answers, then again, double check your parentheses, double check that you type things into the calculator correctly, because that's one of the biggest challenges here, is just making sure you enter it in the calculator correctly. Now, let's go back to, remember in our essential questions here, at the very beginning, we wanted to know, what does the results represent on the graph? And so we're going to focus back on number 3 here, right? And this was f of negative 2 is negative 4. So what does the given x value represent on a graph? And if I go back to my calculator, and conveniently, remember, I typed this one in, so I have this function, and remember here, I said use the table. And so think about, what are these table values actually represent? Well, this value is an x-coordinate. So on a graph, what does an x-coordinate represent? Well, if I look at the graph, negative 2 is somewhere around here, right? It's clearly a very steep graph. I know this is negative 2 on the x-axis, but it doesn't look like it, or I know it doesn't go exactly through negative 2, because at negative 2 it's at negative 4. But what does the negative 2 represent? Well, it represents a horizontal location, right? Because the x values are horizontal or left and right. So this is the given x value is an x value, right? So it does represent an x value, but on a graph, that's a horizontal location. What does the result or the answer represent on a graph? So again, if we look back at the calculator, well, what did we do to find the answer? Remember, we used the table. What is the table showing us? It's showing us y values, right? So this represents a y value, but on a graph, we would call that a height. So on a graph, it's representing a height. You could also say vertical location as well, right? If this is a horizontal location for an x value, then a y value is a vertical location. But a lot of times we say that that's the height. And then lastly, what do these two values together represent? They represent a point on the graph. And again, that should make sense, right? That if we think about what are we finding, well, we found when x is negative 2, y is negative 4, that's a point. And so if I look back at all of my answers here, for number 1, when x is negative 2, y is negative 20, so I know that the point negative 2, negative 20 exists on this function. That's what I found. That's what we're doing here. We're given an x coordinate and we're finding the y coordinate that goes with that, so we know the point. But understanding this context is really important to what we're doing. You know, it's one thing to just be plugging in numbers and getting numbers in return, but it's another to actually understand what did I find. Okay, so when evaluating a function, we are finding a y coordinate or a height of a function at a given x coordinate, which is a horizontal location. Together, they are a coordinate point. Evaluating a function, we plug in the given x value for x in the equation to find the corresponding y value. Keep in mind, it doesn't always have to be x, right? We've seen other variables in that location, and then we are plugging that value in for that variable.